But not because there's so much.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I have to say that there's definitely.
Yeah, we're doing all that right now. Yeah, this week. And
I know why.
actually have the opening ceremony and stuff. So we're
We
getting
haven't gotten the check yet.
What?
I think 11.
No, you know, and at my conference last week,
All
it's at the
new
Illinois
everything starting to look like
Treasurers Association Conference. No one has information about when.
the only thing I find strange.
Just check.
Yeah.
I think your agenda.
Yeah.
Bill, you know,
The first trunk.
Oh, yeah, I think that was.
You save one? Okay.
Same thing. No one has any advance notice from the
when you go
Justice
past the
Department to
parking
in
lot, you
reference
drive
to
past the front,
their interpretation.
west and north.
We have no
It's like
direction.
this mound and kind of this big concrete thing, and I don't know why they put that
Not
there.
included on here, so I just
It's-
give you a copy.
They look nice under the tree. We know they're there.
No, it's
I
coming.
think they store munitions.
Which has an effect on us because we don't want to
I don't
invest
think it's
it
ordinance.
anywhere where there could be a penalty taking it out too early. You know, we've got places we can put it, but you don't want to put it somewhere where you take it within 6 months, they start penalizing.
Like he's not gonna.
Yes.
We're gonna need a building that
Oh,
size
yes,
just
ma'am.
for video in pretty soon.
Good morning. Good morning. Morning. How are you? I'm good. How are you? Good. I got sleep last night. Oh, good. I'm glad.
It's a scam. You think they segregate where the energy comes from?
Yeah.
Green goes on this line and the coal goes to that, the nuclear. No, I've got.
I like your school. Oh, thank you. It's pretty.
All right.
I have 9 a.m. I'd like to call to order the King County Finance and Budget Committee meeting of Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. And we have a roll call, please.
Ford,
Here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Martin here.
Sanchez.
Here, Sanchez here.
Thank you. Surges,
Surges here.
Pepe,
Here.
Shepro. Mr. Berman.
I need a motion and a second to approve our minutes of March 31st.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Any discussion or comments on changes to our minutes? Get roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
They pass.
And public comments, I have no knowledge of any public comments. Is there anyone here to speak? Moving on, Treasurer's report. Kilborn, it's nice to have a new treasurer, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you very much. As you see, the report is submitted with your packet. If you have any questions.
Any questions of our Mr. Kilborn? All right, Finance Director, Mr. Anzick.
Good morning, everyone. Included in the agenda packet would be some of the budget versus actual reports for the month of March. I have some comments regarding the variances that have occurred thus far year to date. There's really nothing significant yet, but I do just have them noted here for your convenience. Regarding the 2020 audit, the audit fieldwork is virtually completed. There's only a few more audit schedules that we need to complete on our end, as well as the finalization of the financial statements. And then, of course, all of the analysis that goes into the final report. So all of this needs to be completed in the next few weeks with to meet the statutory deadline of May 29th. Regarding the county cannabis tax, the Illinois Department of Revenue did confirm tax at the rate of 2.5% will begin being collected on cannabis sales by the municipalities as of May 1st. Because of the process involved in collecting tax, reporting it to the state, and the turnaround, we will not be receiving our first payment until August. But then beginning July 1st, the new increased rates of 3.75% will go into effect, and we've received confirmation of that from the Illinois Department of Revenue as well. Regarding the county share of state tax revenue, so this would involve sales tax, local use tax, RTA sales tax, state income tax, personal property tax. All of these tax collections year to date are actually well above where we were at prior year, as well as significantly above what we had budgeted. So this is very encouraging. And we hope the trend continues. Especially if you look at sales tax, we're about more than $500,000 over what we had expected to be at this point. So we're not sure if this is just a temporary spike due to some pent-up demand or if this will continue. But we'll be continuing to watch that closely and report that for you. Regarding health insurance, the revenue versus expenses report for the health insurance fund year-to-date indicate that there's $1.6 million more collected in refunds and contributions than what we have incurred in expenses thus far. Of course, we are always ahead throughout the year because there are some accruals that we need to post at year end. So this is trending roughly about where we were last year. We have the cash balance of $7.6 million currently in the fund. And then as some of you probably already know from what was explained at Human Services Committee, that temporary increase in cash that we had seen in the last couple of months was really due to a billing error from Blue Cross Blue Shield in which they failed to bill us for some of the fees that were due, but they have caught up with most of that correction, and that's why we're back down to $7.6 million as far as the balance. Regarding the coronavirus relief fund, in just doing the preparing the report that was due to the U.S. Department of Treasury, I was able to provide a snapshot balance as of April 22nd. And well, actually, it was through March 31st, and then I updated it as of April 22nd for this purposes of this report. And we have virtually expended everything that has of all the funds that were available, other than the little bit that was set aside to complete the administration of the funds. And then there is a small amount that's needed to finish out the small business grant program, and we'll be requesting that a budget adjustment be placed on the executive committee agenda in order to accomplish that reallocation of available funds from other programs to the small business grant program too, in order to close out that program. And then the remainder will be shifted to help reimburse the county for its expenses that it has continued to incur. So we're just very pleased that we have finally come to this point where nearly everything has been expended. And actually this report shows it's overexpended. And to the extent that it's overexpended, we will need to back out those reimbursements from the county. We then use some of these savings from the payroll reimbursements that were set aside in order to continue to reimburse the county for coronavirus-related expenses. Regarding the American Rescue Plan Fund, as far as I know, and I haven't checked in the last couple of days, I still have not seen a sign that there's any more guidance issued by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, other than what they had done a week or two ago. And there was something that came out indicating what we needed to do in order to pre-qualify to receive the award. And I verified that we already have those requirements in place. The Emergency Rental Assistance Grant, we did receive notice that our first interim quarterly report is due May 14th. Just to mention the Mass Vaccination Fund, that of course was approved by the board in April. It was established with that initial balance of $500,000. And as soon as we have a better idea of what our expenditures will be for that fund, we really do need to prepare a budget for that fund, hopefully by the next board meeting or finance committee meeting. I did include an updated special reserve fund component balance report now that we have several items in that special reserve. And the current balance shows that we have approximately $7.5 million of coronavirus COVID payroll reimbursement savings left in that fund. We did receive notification from the Grand Victoria Casino Elgin that we will be receiving almost $2 million of a contribution from them this year. However, it is $2.3 million less than the $4.2 million that we received last year. So obviously their ability to contribute to us was significantly impacted by the pandemic last year. The general fund contingency balance remains at $907,500, which will be available for the remainder of this year to be used. I've included the status on some of the capital fund. 8.5% been expended so far for building management, and 47% of this year's budget for the multi-use facility has already been expended. Regarding the 2022 budget, a request was sent to each of the departments and offices for their estimated revenue for the next 5 years, as well as what they think our revenue, how it will be impacted as a result of the COVID pandemic. And we're intending to use that information to calculate how much of a revenue loss that we'll be experiencing since last year before the pandemic, so that if the board decides to, we would be authorized according to the American Rescue Plan Act to use some of those funds to reimburse us for that lost revenue. So this would become the basis of that calculation. I'm happy to report that we have received everything that we requested, and now it's just a matter of putting that together. And I'm hoping to have a report to you by next week's executive committee. For budgeting purposes, each year we calculate the rates that we use for the insurance to charge the special revenue funds for insurance, liability, workers' comp, and unemployment. So this is a way of charging back to the special revenue funds their share based on their payroll expenses of what our costs have been over the last 3 years. So this is done more retrospectively. It's a way of like reimbursing the insurance liability fund for the costs that have been incurred for those items. So based on the 3-year average, we're looking at roughly a 5.06% increase in those various rates from last year to this year. And this is just for budgeting purposes, and it's the special revenue funds will then be charged back an increase of 5% over last year based on these rates. And so with your consent, we would like to include that in the instructions going forward to send out to the departments and offices that these rates will be the ones that we use. And of course, if new information becomes available, we can certainly adjust them, but this is what we have so far. And I have included in the agenda packet the specific calculations so that you can see how these figures were arrived at. I could pause here to see if anyone may have any questions regarding this or concerns. Okay. And then if I assume if there's no objections, then we can go ahead and use these rates for budgeting purposes for this year.
Hearing none.
Thank you. Also then, we received our preliminary IMRF and SLEP rates for 2022. It was surprising to see how significantly lower they are compared to 2021. So I prepared a little comparison between 2021 rates and the projected 2022 rates. And it'll be down in terms of our expense, roughly 16.1%, which is $1.4 million less than last year, assuming that all payroll expenses remain the same. So this is just the difference as a result of the rate itself. So that's good news. That's $1.4 million more we will have to help balance our budget for 2022.
Mr. Chairman, Surges here.
Yes.
Hey, Joe, could you help me understand that? Last year, there was a big brouhaha about IMRF raising or lowering the rates and causing lowering their projection and causing an increase to us. I'm just confused just a little. I didn't pre-read this well enough to understand it. Could you put some training wheels on for me?
Sure. The result of this reduction is simply because of the outstanding market performance that everyone experienced last year. And so IMRF's investment income was significantly increased. I don't have that exact amount available at the moment, but I can look that up on the IMRF website and send that out to you. But it's the result of the earnings that they experienced last year, which is able to reduce this, which also supports our argument as to why their expected rate of return was ever lowered to begin with. If they do, wait, did I say that correctly? No, it's why they increased the expected rate of return. So if they were to lower the expected rate of return, we'd see even a greater reduction in cost to us.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying. I just wanted to confirm it for the record. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen. May I ask Joe a question?
Yes, Miss.
Joe, when we experienced that bump up and we had to send in a whole bunch more money to get ourselves even with IMRF, do you have off the top of your head how much that was? And does this 1.4 million help balance that out a little bit?
Well, I could be wrong, but off the top of my head, I seem to recall that it was roughly about $1.6 million in total that we had to increase our payment to IMRF by. So this does offset that quite a bit.
That's a bit of good news. Thank you.
Mr. Martin?
I have a question. Forgetting the management style of the board of directors of the fund, do we budget in any kind of a cushion into this circumstance? My point being that even well-run. Markets go up and markets go down. Do we just do what we're told to do and wait for the other shoe to drop? Is that the proper procedure?
Well, basically, IMRF provides us with the rates to use for the next preceding year. So at least as long as I've been here, they've never changed that rate. They come out in the spring with the preliminary rate, and then in the fall, they give us the final rate. And all the years I've been here, well, since 2013, it's not changed.
Okay, so we can,
I think you can pretty
rely
well
on that.
plan on this, yes.
okay, thank you.
So then I just have some purchasing highlights to share with you. There's quite a bit. Our new purchasing director has just been phenomenal, and all the various things he's been trying to do. As you can see at the bottom of the report, there's 21 different projects and things that he's been working on. He's very productive. There's several bids and RFPs in process right now. The savings in March for quotes and bids is almost 57,000, and bid savings almost $71,000 for the month of March. So total savings in March was 127,000, year to date 216,000. And of course, those figures all depend on what type of bids and quotes are coming in at the particular time. So that's all I have to share, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for, Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ranzik, two questions. Number one, with respect to our COVID money that we received last year, I believe starting this fiscal year, we had a reserve or a surplus balance of about 6.8 million. Where are we exactly on that now?
Well, there is, I can quote it exactly. I did include a report. It's on page 69 of the agenda, just so that you can see where we're at with that. So this is a report of the Special Reserve Fund, because now within that fund, we have the COVID-19 savings. We have that $125,000 that was reserved for the JJC build out, that new courtroom that will be discussed on this agenda. There's a $238,000 for the sheriff's early retirement. There's $25,000 for the treasurer's legal printing. And then we have that set aside of $320,000 for the special the second election that will occur, the expenses to help offset those expenses. But anyway, at the bottom of all of those, you can see what's left. And, we started out with now I'm going back up to the top. We started out with $18.6 million of COVID-19 savings for payroll reimbursement. We then drew down almost 5.7 to offset the revenue reductions that we were expecting in 2021. And then we drew down another $2.3 million to help balance the budget. So then that actually left us with $10.6 million to start the year. And then since then, we've been drawing down for various reasons. We have the health department generator, the temporary liquor license reduction, the additional vehicle for the coroner's office. We had the reimbursement of the sheriff's deputy who was manning the front entrance of Building A. We had the vaccination consulting expense. We had the health department contract tracing expense, the max vaccination site rental, then additional funding or initial funding of the mass vaccination fund. And then we also drawing down on that the expenses that will be required for the personnel of the new mental health units, abuse and neglect units, and domestic violence units for the state's attorney's office. So all of that leaves us with a balance of almost $7.6 million now at this point in the year.
Thank you very much. In my other question, or maybe it's a statement, is I know early in this fiscal year, we had some expenses that we were incurring to keep King County Connects running. And I thought there was an allocation of money for that, that would end maybe in January. And at the time, I think Roger's department was going to take it over, or we're going to have the public information officer take it over. And I was just wondering, since that initial contract was set up for a specific period of time, how we've been handling that, because I've seen really no change. It looks like it's working well, and I'm just wondering, is there additional expense there, or how's that being handled?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I would have to look, but perhaps.
I can answer that. Mr. Chairman, the services for that were taken out of FTE or full-time employment. They were under the board office in this fiscal budget. So we put that in our web development and contractual services budget. And we were looking at that for the period that the PIO would be sought. And I think that's hopefully going to happen in the near future. We're continuing that on a month-to-month basis. So we continue to have Mr. Nagel as a contractual service in our department, and it's paid through our web development contractual services.
Well, thank you, Roger. I mean, it seems seamless and it seems to be going so well. I just didn't know how that was being handled. So
Yeah,
I appreciate the explanation.
we're looking forward to, the PIO and kind of the plan for how we deal with communications, and we'll see how that all fits together. We don't have any intentions of pulling the plug or stopping that until we get that person and their plan. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any other questions of Mr. Hanzik? Item 6, our auditor's report, Ms. Wegman.
Good morning. Our report is on file. We have, just want to point out that we did complete a salary analysis of the elected officials in the surrounding counties. This is for informational purposes only. And we have been requested to complete some additional information. We will be sending out updated PowerPoint slides to reflect that request.
Any questions of our auditor this time? Thank you, Penny. Item 7, new business.
I'm so sorry, Surges here.
Yes, Surgeon.
There was a request. I just want to make sure I don't let something slide off the plate. There was a request from the VA by Barry Roberts regarding some of the salaries for our VA department. And is that tied into this, Penny, or is this a separate issue?
No, that would be a separate issue. This would be specifically surrounding the elected officials in the
Perfect.
county.
Thank you.
Any other questions? New business. Item A, discussion, a dedicated use of county cannabis tax. Who wants to start the discussion? Mr. Martin.
I would like to know how much money we anticipate, so I know if we're trying to spend $100 or $100 million.
Somewhere between. I am sorry, I don't have that figure. I've been trying to get that from the Illinois Department of Revenue and have not been able to get that. It's not something they're allowed to release. So
Okay.
I'm not sure how to even go about calculating.
Well, I mean, it becomes my point. It's hard to anticipate what we're going to spend it on until we know what we have. But one thing that catches my attention every month is the increasing decrease in the amount of our riverboat funds, and we've got a lot of programs that get funded out of that, and for the county's benefit. And we have to look at it both from the perspective of whether we want to continue to offer support to outside not-for-profits, but secondly, we've got all of our cost sharing for drainage stuff and our recycling program and everything else, which are, for all intents and purposes, looking for a home here because the funding is decreased. So at least at the threshold basis, I'd like to consider those programs as part of the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, Surges again.
Yes, Surges?
John, when we voted on this last, or a year ago or 2 years ago, did we have any handcuffs on us as to how, or intention as to how we wanted to spend that money? Or is this something that's just coming up beyond that? I mean, so last year we said, we had all these debates and all this intellectual conversation. This year we're moving, we have some of the monies coming in. So did we not earmark where that was going to be, or did we? And then I might suggest that, making sure that a large portion of that goes towards advocacy and, and substance abuse and stuff like that. That maybe Corinne had mentioned that, and I'm probably oversimplifying it, but I'm just curious if we earmarked anything prior, or are we free to do what, we think is most accurate now?
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Surges, I don't believe we earmarked any of that cannabis money at all for any particular need. And I do echo Mr. Martin's sentiments with respect to the riverboat grant funding. This last year it went down $2.2 million. And my hope is that we'll get enough from the cannabis to offset that, but there's no guarantee of that. But there was no allocation or projected allocation.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Martin.
I'd just like to comment on Mr. Surges referring to a conversation amongst politicians as intellectual, but.
Thank you. Make my day.
Too bad, maybe just a poor choice of words on Chris' part. I don't know.
Okay.
Mr. Surges, you want to change that?
Yeah, you know what? I stand where I was. I'm sorry.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to thank Mr. Martin for bringing up the subject of the riverboat funds depletion, and that our recycling program is in need, will be in need of funds because of that depletion of the riverboat funds. Right now, our recycling program needs $95,000 a year, speaking of numbers. And then also the landfill, the funds we're receiving from the landfill are also decreasing because of the cross-country course that was put there. And so that's a $99,000 shortfall that we could be experiencing from for salaries for the sustainability department because of depletions from the landfill. So that would be my suggestion for one of the uses of the cannabis tax.
Thank you, Ms. Biggs.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes. Tepe.
Brenner Tepe here. I understand Mr. Martin's a hard act to follow with some of his comments, but I find it somewhat challenging to see us funding things that are very desirable and things that, to me, the county should be funding and funding them from sources that are not necessarily long-term or reliable. If funding a particular effort or a particular item is worthwhile, it shouldn't depend upon the funding source. So if we're going to fund a recycling program, that should stand on its own. To say it has to be funded out of the riverboat grants or the cannabis tax, let's start looking at the logic of what we have to provide to the county residents on a logical basis. And I've seen, people saying, oh, that this funding is going down. So therefore we can't afford to do some particular item because the funding had been dedicated for that. And I just don't think that's the right discussion that we should be having. If something is going to be a good item for the county to provide as a service, then that should be justified just as a service, not justified by a funding source.
You know, I have a tendency to agree with you. Are we bound by history as to why we're doing what we're doing? Why doesn't that just go into the general fund and then our requests of needs for recycling or whatever come as a budget item that we want to pay for out of the general fund?
As far as I understand it, the riverboat contributions came with, there was an agreement made with the riverboat, and they were to provide a certain percentage of their income to the county, and it was to be used for certain purposes. So that the contribution then went into a special fund, the riverboat fund, and then out of that, the riverboat committee would allocate those funds to be used for those specific purposes. So that's why it's set up the way it is.
Question,
Very
please.
good.
Question, please.
Bates?
So were those purposes recycling? Did they specify things like that?
No, it's up to the committee to
Okay,
decide where it's going to be spent.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One of the things that was stipulated when they were making the riverboat funds available was that things were related to three things, and they called them the 3 E's. One was energy, environmental concerns. They had education or educational outreach, and then economic development.
Yeah.
Those were the 3 E's that they had as principles for the riverboat funds.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I please comment on the cannabis fund? Why I don't believe, and I think we should confirm with the state's attorney on this, if there's any mandate for the cannabis funding for county use. I think it's discretionary, but the state's attorney can research that for us so that we have the documentation. But 20% is generally allocated from the state for this funds to go through social issues, social justice issues. Obviously, the money is being taxed, not just as a revenue source for local jurisdictions and for the state, but also to give back because of the great impact that cannabis has had, unfortunately, on our minority populations. So 20% is targeted from state funds to go back to social justice issues, and that can be considered economic development if we so choose. I also couldn't go into drug treatment programs, rehabilitation, job opportunities for incarcerated individuals because of drugs. So this is targeted money, and I believe that given, if you just read what was in the paper yesterday, that opioid deaths have increased in the state of Illinois, and I mentioned that previously, especially with the use of fentanyl, by over 23%. And I know it has impacted here Kane County. We do know that cannabis is very expensive on the street, the black market right now, and that people are buying it legally because there's more controls on it, where opioid, heroin, is very inexpensive. So it is now the drug of choice. More people within the ages of 25 to 40, this is our young working population, just starting families, have a higher propensity to take heroin and to die of a heroin overdose than any other part of our population. And that impacts Kane County. So before we start, as much as I do support environmental issues, and all the other needy issues that are involved with this, I would strongly advocate that as we go through this, we start thinking about how we can possibly start working on these programs. And going through all of this, if you keep somebody healthy, we don't have to have the cost of incarceration. We can keep them employed, which means they are paying taxes back to the state, back to the county. It's a much healthier environment. It's a good use of our money. So that's my 2 cents.
Very good. Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I think a lot of good points have been brung up about how we make use of this, these funds when they come in. I think as soon as possible that we can find out the dollar amount, it'd be helpful. Our sheriff department is already doing a program they presented to the Jobs Committee that helps with rehabilitation, job opportunities, incarceration, putting people back on the streets with a job. So we should really look at that program and others similar to it. Also, since the riverboat funds are down, there's a lot of non-for-profits out there that are doing a great job of trying to serve the community. We should take a hard look at some of those and see what we can do with the funds. Of course, the substance abuse and all that should be added to it. I do believe that recycling is a big part of our lives that plans our future. And I do agree we need to take a look at how it can sustain itself, as long as it does not raise taxes or fees out to our people. So if at any point we do need to support that, I think we should. But if we can find a way to make it, we should really take a hardcore look at that and get it and make sure it's on track, because it's a very important part of our future for our planet all around. I'm going to be really big on supporting some of these non-for-profits and doing the social issues with the funding. And I think, well, maybe not, but we could look at percentages. If the numbers are decent, what percentage would go one place or the other? And the other thing is, we've had so many, I shouldn't say so many, we have had 2 incidents in the last 11 or 12 years where we've had a financial crisis right here in the county. So therefore, anytime we can set funds aside to increase our savings that we put aside for emergency situations, that we even if it's just a small percentage, we should have set that aside, especially with special funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might be a little biased as chairman of Public Health Committee, but my first thought is we should send this revenue to the Public Health Department. And this kind of addresses Mr. Martin's and Madam Chair's points. It's been a conversation during our budget process in the few years I've been on the board. What are we going to do about some of these county departments that we have that are existing largely on riverboat money? And knowing that the riverboat money is decreasing year by year, and now we're seeing a 50% reduction this year. So it has definitely been a part of the conversation. I think that's an interesting idea for use of these funds. Well, the health department does get riverboat money. That's one of the entities that receives money from the riverboat grant. So that kind of checks that box. And Madam Chair mentioned, addiction services. That's kind of what I summarized, things that can help address this huge growing issue that we have. And well, that would come from the health department as well. The one thing to keep in mind is we don't know how much money we're going to be seeing and how soon. It's not going to be a huge pile of money coming at us like I think some people imagined when cannabis was legalized, but it's going to grow over time. So I'm really curious to see how much we start to get in the next 6 months to a year to get a figure of what we can actually do. If we want to do some programs, what can the health department put together on that kind of budget? So that would be my suggestion, would be to send it to the health department to use more or less for these, the addiction issue.
Mr. Martin, I'm sorry.
Jarrett kind of raises a point where everybody's kind of raised the point where we're all kind of circling around the same topic here. And that is that whether we make it part of the general fund or otherwise, there's issues that have been related to the philosophy that we've applied to riverboat funds that we all would like to have addressed or assisted with these monies as they come in. And we don't, Jarrett mentioned it too, we don't have any idea how much money is coming in at this point in time. And maybe to to facilitate starting the administration process with the unknown, we designate a percentage towards educational purposes and designate a percentage towards quote unquote the riverboat fund. And if we have too much money, if we have more money than we think, we have more flexibility, but we already have the riverboat fund. It's just diminished in its annual amount. If we say we're going to, because we've raised not-for-profits as an issue, we've raised health department, we've raised recycling, and all of this stuff comes under riverboat, under the riverboat, I don't know, mentality, I guess is what I'm going to say. So if we said for this year, and we're not going to start collecting it until what, next August? So on a fiscal year basis, it's not going to, this August, but it's not going to be a chunk of, it's not going to be a year's worth of money in any event, because we're not going to start collecting it until August. So if we were to simplify it and to say we would designate it toward, and I don't know, this isn't the right choice of words, designate it toward the riverboat fund, then at least we put the matter to bed for this year, and we can look at it next year when we have an idea as to how much money we're going to get. Because I think we've, in the course of everybody's conversation here, I think we've spent the $100 million that I was laughing about in the beginning when I opened my comment. We have a lot of legitimate demands for this money without any real knowledge as to how much it's going to be. So if we just said throw it in those causes or in that fund, then we can begin to exercise the discretion with the knowledge of how much money we have.
I go back to Mr. Kepi's comments about, now we're talking about something that we have not designated as a special fund, such as riverboat money. But why doesn't this just go into the general fund, and all these other requests that we have go on our budget requests, and we look at them the same as we do anything else, and look at that revenue as just more revenue for the general fund.
Operational revenue.
That's, we're spending a lot of time spending money that we haven't even come up with yet, and thinking about ways of spending it. Those are all requests that we should have for our budget for the next year. And I think that the cannabis is just another tax, just another revenue source that we should be looking at for our budget, rather than discussing it as a separate entity in itself. At least that's my feeling. Sanchez.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I just wanted to say with riverboat money and how we have some departments taking
Different
money
story.
from that, I think that really comes down, at least from my experience, comes down to we had a tax levy freeze for 8 years. So since I've been here, I've watched every budget year, some very creative things happening to try and keep that tax levy freeze going. And so it was always a conversation that we'll keep those departments funding coming from the riverboat, at least partially, but we got to figure it out eventually. It's just, we didn't have to figure it out last year or the year before. So, yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that the riverboat money and the committee that's choosing where it's going to be spent based on all the requests. But other than that, those requests can also be part of our budget requests. And if we can supplement that revenue from revenue of the riverboat, that's fine. We can take it out of our budget request. So, Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To me, unless we have it in a special revenue, it could get lost in the mix down the road. The other thing I wanted to bring up, which is somewhat indirectly related, one of my understandings is that one of the revenue lost with the riverboat is the video gaming that's been approved by the state and that we got a part of. And I like to know, maybe not today, is how much of those funds are we getting and where are we using those funds at?
Getting zero.
I don't have the figure, but I can get it. but it is currently being deposited in the capital fund. That was per the direction of the board at some point a few years back. So that's where the dollars, the revenue from video gaming is going right now. And I can look up the amount and send out an email.
Mr. Chairman, Allen?
Ms. Allen?
Mr. Onzik, I believe that there's been a small amount of cannabis-related money coming in as like a share, not a lot, but some. And haven't we directed that into the sheriff to for some of the projects that he wants to do?
Yes, there is that small amount. It's the county's share of the state revenue, and that was very specifically mandated through statute as to what it can be used for. And I believe I even have it in my report. I can't quote it off the top of my head, but it's in a special fund that the sheriff controls and uses it according to that statute.
Thank
All right, well, it's been a good discussion, I guess, if we come to any conclusions or not. Shall we move on to item B? A resolution authorizing the fiscal year 2021 budget adjustment to provide funding for a reapportionment committee. And this was not included, but obviously it's been emailed to everybody. And who's to speak on that? Sanchez?
No, I'll move it.
Okay.
Leonard seconds.
Motion is second, discussion.
If I may, I can speak to that, Chairman. This money is going to be used to support the 4 town halls that we're going to be having throughout the county. I would like to hire, I cannot do event coordination, but we need a consultant to help organize these, to find the location, to do the research of who should come, to market it appropriately, as well as we'll be hiring a court reporter who can take minutes of the discussion so that that can be sent to the board members on the committee, as well as I think we could send it to all committee members, all board members, to hear what the community members have to say about this. So that's what the intent of this fund is for and the expense. Thank you.
All right. You were asking for this to, it's scheduled to go to the executive committee. We're looking for it to go directly to the county.
Yes, please. Because
Right.
we're looking at, because of our quick turnaround with the maps, creation of the maps, to be done sometime to present it to the board at a special board meeting, probably about the 3rd week of June. So it's finalized by June 30th is our deadline. So we're looking at doing this very quickly in May and maybe the 1st week of June to have these town halls.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item C, a resolution authorizing establishment of a public defender's office abuse and neglected attorney position.
Leonard moves.
Tepe seconds.
A motion, a second, discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item D, a resolution authorizing the build-out of a second courtroom at the Judicial Center.
Tepe moves.
Leonard
Surges,
seconds.
second. Surges, second.
That's a third.
I defer.
You can disseminate.
Woo-hoo.
All right. Yes, sir.
You know what? I don't want to wait. I don't want to get in the way of momentum. If you guys want a third and keep going. The only thing I wanted to just bring up, you've all heard our presentation, 2 big issues or things I wanted to just talk about real quick. One is we've talked about the case increase. And so as of yesterday, I'm trying to just kind of want to show you the numbers. So as of yesterday, we're at 72 cases. So we're projecting right now 216 cases. So one of the questions that's come up is this something that we expect to see continue? And we have. The chief judges throughout the state are meeting with the DCFS director today to find out if we should expect to see this continue on. All indications are that we are. The next thing that I just wanted to fly through is the issue that obviously has come up is how do you pay for this, or how do we pay for this? We've talked about a lot of different options. Our recommendation to the board at this point is that the new judicial facilities fee with the line item that's up above now has a balance of over $1 million. And our recommendation would be to use this fee, this line item, to pay for the build out. So the presentation that I've handed out and that I've talked about numerous times are the same. The other options, if the board wanted to look at a different direction, would be, of course, to look at the savings that we are experiencing from COVID savings. And Mr. Naughton is here if there's any questions on that. So with that being said, you've heard the presentation before. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has on that proposal.
Any question, Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Judge, with respect to the monies needed, it looks like what you're proposing today is not even to use the $125,000 that we were allocating for potential need for this, but to fund it fully through the fee.
I would defer to the board. I mean, we appreciate the fact that the $125,000 was brought up and then approved just recently by the board. So we have that. But again, I would defer to the board's decision. There is money in that new judicial facility fee that could pay for it entirely, or it could be, we could not use all that and use the $125,000 as well. I would defer to your decision.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Tepe?
I say take his money.
I'm with Vern.
Yeah.
You want that in cash? All right. Any other questions?
Thank you. And
Thank you.
I'm gonna leave the pointer right here on I told him I wouldn't take it to my office, so I'm gonna leave it right here. I don't want that to come out of my check either.
Thank you, that's all. Have no other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Absolutely.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item E, an ordinance confirming the establishment of a judicial facilities fee. Any discussion? Oh, we need a motion to,
Tepe moves.
Tepe, Martin seconds. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. And item F, a resolution authorizing a license agreement with the city of West Chicago. And there's been a slight change to the wording on the annual fee. And the new language reads, a license agreement to pay the licensor an annual license fee of 10 cents per linear foot for each conduct installed for placement of telecommunication and utility facilities within the licensor's public way. Do we have a motion to approve?
Martin moves.
Martin moves. Ford seconds. Discussion. Roger?
Yes, the resolution as it was presented is fine. There's no changes to the resolution. But in working with the state's attorney's office and the legal for the city of West Chicago, they had asked us to provide some changes to the actual license agreement. So the resolution's the same. The license agreement includes a 10 cents per linear foot. So what does that equate to you? Per year, we're going to pay $2,023 for this license agreement. Still actually less than what we initially thought we were going to be paying. And then the second parts of this memo that you all should have received describes the legal description of the project and the description of the actual conduit that we're putting in. So the total is $2,023. It's a budgeted expense, and we're recommending approval.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item G, a resolution authorizing easement agreement with SBA Edge and LLC. A motion to approve?
Leonard moves.
Sanchez
Leonard
seconds.
moved, Sanchez seconds. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item H, a resolution authorizing contract for elevator modernization project at the Government Center Campus Building A. We have a motion to approve.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez seconds. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I, a resolution authorizing agreement with T-Mobile USA Incorporated for the Connecting Heroes Program. Do I have a motion to approve?
Deputy moves.
Deputy moves.
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item J, a resolution authorizing the agreement between the County of Kane, eWorks, and Vet Tech for the recycling of used electronic equipment. Do we have a motion to approve?
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Thank you.
And item K, a resolution.
Mr. Chair,
authorizing-
Surges here.
Yes, Surges.
I'm sorry, on this last ordinance with the electronic recycling, there have been some communications between the county and the city of, or the village of West Dundee regarding some of the fees and structure on how the recycling and intergovernmental agreement has worked there. I think we're going to revisit that under a different issue, but as long as this came up today, I just wanted to tap on the shoulder and maybe introduce the subject a bit, and we'll try and get it back here in the next month or so.
Very good, thank you. Oh.
L.
Item K, a resolution authorizing to purchase Naxal and funding from the Illinois Department of Human Services.
Deputy moves.
Leonard seconds.
Pepe, Leonard, discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item L, a resolution authorizing office supply contract.
Martin moves.
Martin moves,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item M, a resolution authorizing toner cartridge contract. Do we have a motion?
Leonard moves.
Martin seconds.
Leonard Martin, discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item N, a resolution authorizing the KCAC deputy administrator position.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford seconds. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item O, a resolution authorizing an administrative officer 2 position rehire. Motion to approve.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
may I
sorry.
say something real quick? This is Brett Youngstown from King County Animal Control. I just wanted to point out with this resolution, please excuse me for jumping in. Lynn Alberg has been with the county for 47 years. That is an amazing feat. She has done so much for this county, let alone this facility. I just want to voice in and recognize how amazing her asset to this county has been, and just make sure she had her proper note in front of the county board. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your comments. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
I'm just commenting, 46 years, that is commendable. I mean,
47, actually. I'm sorry.
It's an extraordinary career. She is to be congratulated. Perhaps maybe she can come by and do the Pledge of Allegiance for us one day. That would be fantastic. I'd love to meet her.
I will mention it to her, Madam Chairman, and see if she agrees.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love longevity, right? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item P, a resolution authorizing temporary assignment pay for the interim executive director of public health and staff.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford second. Discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Debbie.
I'm somewhat surprised to see this on the agenda at all, because this to me had not been properly vetted by the committee that's in charge of this. The Public Health Committee should have been vetting it. So I move to table this until it's been properly vetted.
Move to table. So it will be tabled until,
We gotta have a second.
don't have a second.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chair, I have to say, this is one of the, not sure the exact word to use, but this is one of the most striking things I've ever seen come before this board in the short time that I've been on it. This is $300,000 of monies that are going to people that have been, in my opinion, paid well for doing their job. So I'm quite shocked at seeing this on our agenda. And as I say, I'm even more shocked that it was not properly vetted by the Public Health Committee.
All right, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vern, I can address that. This issue was discussed at the last Public Health Committee meeting by Interim Director Foster. At that time, she explained that this is not a budget adjustment, meaning we don't need a fund transfer from somewhere else. This is all going to be paid for from within the health department's currently existing budget. This happened last year under Director Barb Jeffers. The reason, at the time last week, I was still under the impression that it would be able to be authorized simply without the board because it's coming from within the budget of the health department. Ms. Neerman informed us that her interpretation of how these procedures should go about is different from Joe Lulvis last year. And so she said, let's put it through the board process. And the soonest we could do that was for this meeting right now. I can tell you again, the money is coming from within the health department budget. So it's not asking for additional funds from anywhere else, at least as far as I'm aware at this time. And it was discussed at Public Health. People had the opportunity to ask questions if they had any. But again, you have a difference in the civil division head this year compared to last year. So she does things a little bit differently. And it took a lot of email exchanges and phone calls for us all to suss out the situation and get all on the same page. It kind of became a thing that really needed to get worked out, but it did. So that is the reason why it didn't go through Public Health Committee first. It did go through the committee in the form of a discussion, but we were informed after that meeting that we do need to adhere to this process. So at the very least, we will have 2 public hearings on this issue before it reaches the full county board.
Chairman Sturgis here.
Yes, sir.
So I do apologize. I received back, I returned back from vacation at about 1 o'clock in the morning last night. I did not read this and was gone for 10 days before it. So can somebody just bring me up to speed at what this is?
We're informed after that meeting that we do need to adhere to this process. So at the very least, we will have
How do I
2
raise my
public
hand?
hearings on this issue before it reaches the full county board.
Chairman Sturgis here.
Yes, sir. Sturgis.
Go on. So
Someone's watching
I
YouTube.
apologize. I received back. I returned back from vacation at about 1 o'clock in the morning last night. This and was gone for 10 days before it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm getting some feedback in the system.
Yeah, somebody had Zoom and YouTube on at the same time.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So if there was anything after I asked my question, I did not hear it. Is there? I mean, what is this all about? I'm not understanding this.
Can I answer?
Mr. Sanchez, yes.
This is Sanchez. Mr. Sturgis, this is a temporary pay increase. It is something that is kind of historical with the health department when they've had epidemic-related issues in the past. This was started last year under the former executive director Jeffers, and it's just a temporary increase in pay for all health department staff. Everybody that works for the health department is doing the work of 2 or 3 people outside of their normal job description because of COVID. So this was a way to help us retain employees because the strain on the health department employees is very great. And they're dealing with a lot of the negative feedback from the public as well. So these temporary pay increases, again, it comes from within the health department budget. We're not asking for more money, but it is to help us keep our already dedicated employees.
Jared, please, I'm going to either vote to table or vote no on this, and I don't want it to be misconstrued as a political statement. But earlier in the meeting, I had put forth something for our VA employees and Jake Zimmerman's team that's unresolved. So I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I said yes to yours and told Jake wait in line. And I don't want that to be misconstrued. I just want to try and be somewhat consistent in this. As we continue to look at him and his team while also looking at you and with Kathy's team. And both teams are exemplary. I can't say enough about them.
All right, we have a SAO Civil online would like to speak.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, to my knowledge, this issue did not come up last year. Our opinion was not asked of this question last year. It is our opinion that the TAPs for the staff could be approved by interim director, Ms. Foster. However, given the last county board discussion, the will of the county board indicated that they wanted this matter to come back before them as the board. That's why we suggested that the staff raises, and they're not raises, I'm sorry, they're temporary assignment pays, which have been done in the past, just not on a across the board basis. Due to the dollar amount involved, it's our understanding the county board wanted further discussion and further vetting of the matter. In any event, the interim executive health director could not approve her own temporary adjustment in pay, so that would have to come before the board. And I do not know of any disagreement between myself and Mr. Lulvis on this issue. to my knowledge, we were not asked to weigh in on this issue last year.
Thank you. The way I understand it, what we're really approving is the temporary pay for the interim executive director
In staff.
and
In the staff.
we're approving this, the entire. All right. Any other further questions?
Mr. Chair, I have to say, regardless of what was been done in the past, this is not the kind of compensation or way that compensation should be. If people are doing an exceptional job, they need to be paid for it. They need to get merit increases, or they need to get increases based upon what they're doing. To say a temporary assignment pay because you're doing your job because it's harder, to me, is just not a valid argument. So I will be against this all the way. I don't think there's any way you can change my mind.
I think a point of clarification, if I may, excuse
Mr.
me,
Chairman.
for just jumping in. Wait a minute, hold on a second. She's not deputy.
Well, that maybe the title is wrong, but that is her.
Okay, Mike, it's, here we go. She's not deputy executive director. That's why I was confused. She's interim executive director. So yes, her compensation is in here as well. But I do have a question. It's coming out of her budget, out of the health department's budget. Is that from the $1.25 million grant? Is that where the money is coming from?
No, there are savings they're achieving from vacant positions that were budgeted for. And it totals that amount requested.
So are they, I know this is a big topic. Are they looking to fill those positions?
Some they are, as far as I'm aware of. It is hard to fill many of those positions right now. And to also to Mr. Teppe's point about, they're getting paid enough. We're working on putting together an analysis of Collier County health departments and their budgets in comparison, the proportion of population that they serve. And already, based on what I've seen, Kane County is very, very low on the scale. Higher end on population, very low on how much we budget for public health every year. So I won't get into the numbers, but it's very low. So offering them this temporary pay increase, which is historic, at least in some part, COVID has required all hands on deck. So that's why it's across the board. And it's helping us keep our employees because they see positions that are open elsewhere that pay a lot more money, doing a lot less work. And that's just the reality of our situation right now.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I didn't say they were being paid enough. Okay, I said they were being paid for doing their jobs. Okay, and if their jobs needed to be paid more, there's a normal process for doing that. So I didn't say they were being paid enough.
Mr. Martin.
When we talk about the difficulties that the health department employees faced because of the COVID virus, it's unquestioned. But we can go to more than one department and talk about how the COVID, either the problem itself or the influx of monies that had to be spent or the administration of those monies caused people to work a lot harder. And I think we need a discussion because this isn't just one. The reality of the work effort was not that it applies to just one department. We could go department by department and find circumstances. And I don't know if I would like to reconsider the motion to table. If that's, I don't know the procedure, but Vern's motion to table.
You have to reissue it.
I have another speaker, Sale, Civil.
Yes, the only other thing I would like to point out here is that the union employees, many of which are doing jobs outside of their job description. So under the contract, we do need to engage in discussions with them to make sure that the temporary assignment of additional job duties outside their job descriptions are compensated. In addition, the exempt employees are probably working, 7 days a week in many cases. I know I get calls at, 10, 11 o'clock at night from them, and on the weekends. I know this past weekend was a good example of that. So they are doing job duties beyond their job descriptions. Some of them are doing, for example, the interim executive director is doing her job, the executive director's position, as well as the deputy executive director's position. So there are additional job duties beyond their job descriptions that are being performed here.
Mr. Chairman. Over here.
Sanchez.
I would say that this resolution is not trying to discount the extra burden that other departments have felt as a result of COVID. But I could ask the health department if they have enough savings in their budget to cover some of these other departments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really caught in the middle on this because I appreciate Mr. Tepe bringing up this $340,000 of additional expenditure for overtime or additional time or whatever you want to call it. And to that point, I agree with him. But the other point that I have a problem with is I don't think we as a board should micromanage departments. In other words, if they have money in their budget and they want to allocate it any way they want, as long as they're balanced at the end of the year and don't ask for more money, it should not be our position to take a position on this. And we should let the departments run themselves. This isn't grant money that they're using. This is a surplus of funds they have in their operational budget. So I'm really kind of caught in between. I think Mr. Tepe's point is very valid and I agree with it, but they're not asking for more money. They're shifting money in their own budget. And this is and it's stated a temporary increase. It's not a permanent. So to be honest with you, if it's tabled, it's tabled. If it's approved, it's approved. I'm kind of stuck in the middle on it, to be honest with you. But I don't think we should micromanage departments.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Tepe.
once again, I move to table this until it's been properly vetted by the Public Health Committee.
Surges second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table. Doesn't require a vote.
Yes, it does. Just, there's no discussion after that.
No debate.
No debate. Roll call, please.
Ford,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
There's a tie, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon?
There's a tie.
Didn't pass. All right.
You can
No,
vote,
you
sir.
vote now.
You have to break the
You're
tie.
the tiebreaker.
Oh, is it tied? Oh, okay. My vote is no.
Then it passes.
All right.
Yeah, I think we need to vote on it then.
Now we vote on the resolution.
Well, I think, are we
You're back
finished
on the other
discussing it or not? I guess that's a,
Now we're voting on the motion.
yes, but we're not going to vote yet.
I have just one follow-up comment to the Health Department. Mr. Sanchez, I would encourage the committee to talk to the Health Department directors and staff to encourage them to hire. Because we all know that compensation encourages people to work, but the longevity of having time off, rest, being able to have that work-life balance is much more critical to the success of an employee than compensation. All research shows that. So I appreciate the fact that they're working double time. We need their efforts, but that cannot forgo the need to hire additional staff as appropriate.
My understanding is they're pursuing applicants. Mr. Snowden's on the line. He might be able to add to that. Or not, but yeah, point well taken.
Mr. Chair, comment?
Martin?
Mr. Brown was ahead of me.
Mr. Brown, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. I know I'm not on your committee, but I've just got a very good conversation here and very good comments, but I'm wondering if this gets approved and it's being approved with the idea that the money is coming from their surplus of their budget from their department, does this now open the door to every other department to request and or want to do the same thing for their employees that have been working at 11 o'clock at night with any surplus they might have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, yes, it does. If they have a surplus in their budget, they can allocate that money in their budget any way they want, as long as they're in balance at the end of the year. If they go over, then there's a problem. So they would have to do this with the understanding that they have enough money in their budget to handle a temporary increase. And in the public health department, they do it this time because of vacancies. Other departments, I don't think have that luxury.
Mr. Martin.
Just as a matter of philosophy, and I think to Mr. Leonard's point, I feel very uncomfortable as a board, in effect, making de facto salary decisions that affect, it argues that it affects one department, but the psychology kind of goes across the board here. And I am uncomfortable with the board making, I'm uncomfortable with the board being involved in the process, I guess is what I'm saying, because anything we say ultimately affects every office in the county. And I don't think I'm making myself very clear, but I am making it clear that I'm uncomfortable.
Very good. You know, this did go on in last year, so it's not something that is completely new, but maybe we were not as aware then as we may be now of what is happening. Is there any further discussion? And the motion has been made and second to authorize the temporary assignment pay. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sturgis,
No.
Tepe.
No.
Thank you.
Very good. Item Q, approving county board personnel expense voucher reimbursement request. We have a
Leonard
motion.
moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford seconds. Discussion?
If I can share, I was asked to attend a press conference with Governor Pritzker, and this is the mileage for that, to reimburse myself from the mileage. So that's what this is about. Thank you.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
If I may, just as a
Yes.
follow-up, thank you. When we start allocating new additional, our next year's budget, this budget line should be increased. If any of the board members were asked to go down to Springfield or to talk to our legislatures, whether it's in Chicago or in Springfield, the budget is not sufficient enough to support that.
Okay. And Resolution R, approving March 2021 claims paid. Do we have a motion to approve?
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have no old business. Motion to place our reports on file.
Board moves.
Leonard seconds.
Ford, Leonard, discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I have no need for an executive session.
Darn it.
Motion to adjourn?
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Leonard and Sanchez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
You call my wife and tell her.
He was right.
You were right.